Welcome to Ken's Korner Podcast, Season 4.
Hi, everyone. This is Ken's Korner, and I'm Ken Judge, and we're here with Joe Moyer, back on Sports Timeout. But today we got some special guests, Joe. You keep asking me, is it just me and you, Ken? Are we going to do this again? Well, Joe, I brought you two special guests today out there in Calgary. You know him from the fan panel. Say hi to George Garbutt.
Hi, guys.
Hey, George, love your sign in the back.
Exactly. Thank you.
And everyone knows who this other man is here. Paul Henny Hendrick, the voice of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Welcome back, Paul.
The forgotten voice, but I'll take it.
We miss you. You have no idea.
You'll never be forgotten. You're iconic.
Yeah,
you're all right, Joe, do you want to start us off here today?
Well, again, Paul, thanks for joining us. I'm glad everyone made it through the holidays. It was a busy time, and I'm not sure, George, what the temperature is out there, but it certainly has been a little frosty here the last couple of days till today. So we were in the minus 10 to 15 range, and it was pretty cold. So I felt like I was in Calgary in September.
No, we're at a plus 10 right now.
Chinook.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
Enjoy while you can, eh? So yeah, guys, it's thank you so much, Paul, for coming in. Ken and I yak a lot about the Leafs because there's lots to yak about, mostly good stuff, which we're happy to say. And it's been a really, I think, a pretty good year, despite the injuries, which has set us back a little bit. And we're kind of wondering what's going forward with the Four Nations Classic, and is Auston going to be making it and playing, and the Leafs let him, and all that kind of stuff. So lots to talk about.
Okay, Paul, we're going to start you right with that. Auston Matthews. Let's talk about Auston Matthews.
I'll tell you what. I hope he doesn't play in this Four Nations Cup. It's an all-star game. It's a glorified all-star game. Let's be honest. These are four great nations, and it's nice to see them go head-to-head. But in the big picture, what's the purpose of this? The all-star game previously, the format's gone. They have to do something better than this. But we're not going to risk a generational talent who arguably will be the greatest Leaf of all time when his career is all said and done on a two-game experiment if it gets to two games. So I just hope they don't play him. And this is a Kawhi Leonard load management situation. We had some hockey to play, a lot of it in April. This February 4th thing, I'm going to watch it, but I'll be very happy if Austin's not there, and I'm betting he won't be there.
Yeah, you know what? As a matter of fact, there's quite a few of those Florida Panthers heading there, so maybe they can be nice and tired by the time that playoffs comes around. Before I move on from you, Paul, I'm going to talk about Mitch Marner, because when people talk to me about Mitch Marner, I've adopted your saying since then: do not throw the baby out in the bathwater. And you called it. How are you feeling about Mitch Marner today, Paul?
I can understand how people felt last April, given the way that series ended, given the way that shift ended with Pasternak's going to overtime goal. I can understand all of that and all of the frustration. Last season's last season. This is this season. He, as well as a generational talent. And as I mentioned, I was on the board that selected who goes on Legends Row. And I've told it on this podcast before. We finished up with Wendell, Red Kelly, and Frank Mahovlich. And we realized at that point, that's it. We're done. Everybody who's on there should be on there. And I said, the next two who will be on there, if they stay around here long enough, will be Mitch and Auston. Let's keep them. And now why would you draft a homegrown talent, develop him, to give him to somebody else just because you're frustrated and you want to lower your cap and maybe get some quantity instead of having the quality? He is so totally unique, and that hasn't changed. And a bit of a Cheshire cat grin just seeing him the way he is. But those who wanted him gone last spring, think about it. You got to think with your head and not with your heart, although heart is what drives a lot of us with our interest in the game. I'm so glad he's sticking around. He's a tremendous talent, and we've got him. And we played bad enough to get him. Auston played bad enough to get him. Why would you give him to another team?
I agree with you 100%. I say give this guy the money now before he actually goes a little bit higher and gets up there in that 110-point range in his points, and then we're in trouble. I know the cap's going up next year.
Yeah, but George, what is it? 8 by 12.5. He's going like it's going to be 8, right?
Yeah.
8 years. It's 12 and a half. I'm not sure. Not sure what it is, but whatever it is, if it's in that department, we're seeing the Blue Jays go through this with Vladdy. Be careful what you wish for. And he's going to get his money no matter what, and he deserves it. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah. I know George is an avid believer in what you're saying. He's shaking his head. George, do you have anything you want to add in on the talk about Mitch Marner here?
Well, I'm a Mitch Marner backup. He's my boy, and he's always been a great player in my eyes, and I think he deserves it. And we're keeping him. I'm keeping him. All the rest can say what they want.
Yeah. You know what? They're just jealous that we have him and they don't. He is actually now, guys, sitting 3rd in the NHL in points, 2nd in the NHL in assists, and while killing penalties. So it says something. Joe, we're going to talk about last night's game and more specific, Joseph Woll. Let's talk about your feelings last night. Is that just a blip in? And guys, we're going to let you chime in this as well. Is that just a stinker last night? And is Joseph Woll okay? Or are we dreaming for Anthony Stolarz?
I'm not worried, to be honest with you. I think it was a one-off. He's played a little bit of hockey, more than he's probably been used to in the last couple of years. The Leafs came out strong but faded. Listen, losing McCabe on the blue line is a huge loss for the team. That changes our whole defensive complexion, and you're moving people around. And I think they started Chris Tanev with Morgan Riley last night. So I'm not too worried about that. Carolina's always been a good, strong team, and they played well. It's unfortunate. Everybody's making a big deal about the minuses of the top line. You're going to have games like that. It's a blip. I'm not worried about it. Carolina's a good team, and I think we're meeting them a couple more times before the season's over. So
yeah.
Well, if you went by the plus minus, Joe, then I guess David Pastrnak had one bad game against the Leafs not too long ago. He scored 2 goals, but he was on for 6 of the Leaf goals, so he still left with a -4. And that stuff can happen with all-star players just as much. The NHL is a great league, the best in the world, right? So, Joseph Woll, what's your thoughts on Joseph Woll right now?
Well, I'm going to agree with everybody else that it was just a stinker of a night. And I can't wait for Stolarz to come back to help him out and make our season a good season. And like everybody has said, Carolina is a tough team, and I think Woll's good. He's good. He's going to stay in there. I'm hoping for Stolarz to come back soon.
It's nice.
Sorry.
It's nice to have the depth and goaltending we have here with the team that they've got and how well they play defensively. This is a different team under Craig Berube, and maybe we're seeing some of these injuries because of the way they play, maybe a trifle soft in years past. They're not that way anymore. And we got to, you're right about McCabe. You can argue that he might be, you can lose Auston for a while and the team still seems to do okay.
Yeah.
You don't want to lose him long term. Jake McCabe over the long haul will really hurt this team and force them to trade somewhere to bring in somebody kind of similar to help bolster maybe that third pairing, given the domino effect of what happens when McCabe leaves the lineup. So, George, I think Woll's good. I think Hildeby's good. I think Stolarz is going to be good when he comes back. But these goaltenders have all benefited from a Craig Berube team and a Brad Treliving team that has brought together some really good people and tough people. It's not as easy to score against the Maple Leafs, and I think the goaltenders' confidence has reflected this. These goaltenders in a different year with another Maple Leaf team might not be quite as successful. But I was at the Winnipeg game. I haven't been to too many games since I left the organization. Joseph wasn't very good that day, but neither were the guys in front of him. And that was their third game in 4.5 days. I knew it was going to be a bit of a dog's breakfast, given it was Winnipeg. But he bounced back. They bounced back. And I think it was, 5 wins after that. So no, not afraid for anything. I just think it's a better team overall. And Stolarz, sooner he gets back, the better. but I think they're going to be fine.
Yeah, I agree. Well, we're going to play A, B, or C, guys. And it's a question on who you think moving forward, if all our goalies are injury-free moving into the playoffs, who's our goalie? A, Woll, B, Stolar, C, whoever the heck is playing the best. We're going to start with you, Paul.
I'm just going to go with A, Joseph Woll. And listen, I'm just throwing spaghetti at a wall here because I really like Anthony Stolarz, and I think the two of them are going to complement each other. But I think if somebody's going to start, I think it'll be Woll. That's where he's been historically last year, even with Samsonov. He never had any fear with Joseph coming in and taking over. So I'm going to go Woll, but I could be very wrong in this.
George, what's your thoughts on that?
I'm going Stolarz. I'm hoping he comes back out of an injury, and he's just amazing, monster in the net. I'm saying Stolarz is our number one, with Woll biting at his heels. I mean, Woll's good, but I want Stolarz.
Joe, you're the deal breaker here.
Well, what a nice problem to have. We haven't had the luxury of figuring that out over the years. It's always been, please don't play him or whatever. I think it's a win-win for both. I've listened. Joe Woll was tagged as number one, paid as a number one. The plan was to get him as number one, and as long as all things equal and they're both healthy and both playing well, I agree with Paul. I think they're going to start with Joseph Woll. That's their future. And then if he falters, wow, okay, we have to go to Stolarz. Big deal. That's not a problem. Whereas before it would have been a huge problem.
Yeah. I don't disagree with you, but I'm sitting on the fence as well. It's a great problem to have. And I'm thankful for whichever goalie moving into that first round, to be honest. And Boston's not looking so scary these days. And Paul, you were right again. Jeremy Swayman could hit the ground running. So
you don't miss training camp. No, only Mario Lemieux gets to miss training camp and hit it running. And the other thing is, I want to see the Bruins drop for a lot of reasons, and they're dropping. But you know what? Come trade deadline day, and I think he still has another year on his contract. I'd love to see Charlie Coyle come over to Toronto to help solidify the middle. I would love to see a player like that. And again, I think in terms of term that he has one more year left, but he would bring a lot of what Craig Berube wants. He showed, a year ago that he could step in and play one of those top two center roles if need be. Obviously, that's not a perfect scenario long term, but I think he'd be a nice add. So I want Boston continue to drop so that they're going to be moving players. And I'm not saying it would happen, but it would be nice to happen, in my opinion.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Okay, so we're going to, you don't have to name players, guys, but let's just talk about what you think where the holes are in Toronto and what you would like if you were the general manager. Where would you fill? Would it be that third line center? Would it be a defenseman? Maybe both. George, we're going to start with you.
I'm thinking both with a third line center and a defenseman. Who knows how long McCabe is down for, and we might have to put somebody in to fill that spot. I'm saying we need to get two guys in a trade, a center and a defense.
And I don't disagree with you because I'm not a big Connor Timmins fan of late. He's kind of scaring the heck out of me. Paul, we're going to move on to you.
Well, if you've only got to pick one, I think you can never have enough defense. So I'm going to go to defense. I think Connor Timmins is a nice depth person, good guy to have who can fill in. Nice first pass out of the zone, right-handed shot, and he's got some size. So I still like him. But if I had to pick one, I'd say D. But George wanting both a center and D, and we can look at every team contending in the NHL. They want exactly the same thing, but I'll go with one and say a defenseman. How about you, Joe?
Christmas wish. I think I'd lean towards a center because I'm a little worried about the health of one of our forwards. I mean, John Tavares has had a spectacular, phenomenal season. But if Auston Matthews, for whatever reason, goes down, we like it or not, we're going to miss him. So I'd like to get a scoring center, or not a status of an Auston Matthews scoring 40, but someone that can put 20 to 25 in the net and has a bit of a scoring touch, more than Pontus Holmberg. So my lean is towards the center just for depth, but I love what the Leafs have done with their defensive depth, Philip Myers and Connor Timmins, and I think they've got Rafi. They're adding a few bodies back down there that just in case. I mean, you need 10 defensemen in the playoffs for a long playoff run minimum because you're going to lose guys. So they're
Yeah.
getting big bodies, they're getting defensive guys that can play defense first. I like that. It's a nice change. They're 6'5" and bigger, and they clear the front of the net. Maybe not the most talented guys, but you got to have that depth for a long playoff run. You can't just run your six guys out every night. So
Yeah, I really
benefit from
like
both.
that Philip Myers contract that we gave him. He's kind of like our Simone Benoit from last year, I believe.
Yeah.
Marshall Raffai, I'm glad you mentioned him as well because I think he has a lot of upsides. Okay, so we're going to move around the NHL a little bit before we set up this game that's coming up, our Indigenous Celebration Game, actually. And we're going to talk about the logo a little bit. But let's go here first. This is something I heard just the other day on another show, probably on TSN. But if you could only pick two teams out of the four Canadian teams that are kind of borderline making the playoffs this year, that would be Vancouver and Calgary in the West, Ottawa and Montreal, who's come out of nowhere lately, guys. They've been playing pretty well. Who is your pick? And we're going to start with you, Paul. Two teams. Who's going to the playoffs?
Of those four you mentioned, Ken?
Yes, please.
Well, out west, I've always been a big fan of Rick Tocchet. They've got to get that situation in the dressing room settled, but that's still a pretty good hockey team. So I'll go with, Vancouver out there and out this way. It's a long way back from Montreal, but never doubt, their head coach and what he brings. And Ottawa's coming, but I'm just worried about Ottawa's goaltending and whether it stays healthy. So you know what? I'm going to go Vancouver and Montreal.
That's pretty good picks. I like that. George, I know you're in Calgary, but what's your pick?
I'm gonna throw a dog a bone, and I'm gonna say Calgary. Let's who knows if Calgary squeaks through or not. And I don't want to say anyone back there like Montreal or Ottawa, but if I was to say,
okay, better question, George. Who do you want to see in the first round when we end up first?
Well, I would like to beat up Montreal for sure.
Okay, so that's Calgary and Montreal. Joe, you're the last here.
Well, I think Vancouver's got so much talent. They have to clean up the drama going on out there, and I think they will. But they're such a good team, and if they're going to clean up the drama, they're going to get some assets back that's only going to help them. If Thatcher Demko stays healthy, that's going to give them an edge for sure. And you know what? I had high hopes for Ottawa, but again, their goaltending I don't think is reliable. But Montreal's got this new guy, Dobis, playing very well, and goaltending can get you some momentum. And I'm going to say Vancouver, Montreal.
There you go.
There you go. Thank you guys for playing along. Okay, we're going to set up this game that we're going to be watching tomorrow night, Toronto and Vancouver. Paul, do you want to start on what you expect to see? Is Toronto going to bounce back?
Yeah, I think so. Vancouver's in Raleigh on Friday night. This is a tough back-to-back. The flight's not too far. Literally, it's about $1.40, in those private charters and up and down. So they'll be in Toronto at a decent hour. They're going to be motivated, obviously, but it's still back-to-back. And that's a tough, Joe was talking about this Carolina team. They're a really good hockey team. George, you as well. So I think Toronto does bounce back without a doubt. It's going to be interesting to see who starts that game, given I think it's going to be Woll, but I think this is a game where the Hildebeest could come in and do the job, given what's going to be happening in front of them. So I see Toronto bouncing back without a problem, and I see a tired Vancouver Hockey Club coming in here. We put aside the 3-hour time difference. These guys are pros. They're used to it, but it is a factor. And this is a tough back-to-back building to come into, given Toronto's supremacy on home ice this season.
Joe, I'm going to let you go next.
Well, when the Leafs so far this season have had a stinker or two in a row, they bounce back, and I anticipate the exact same thing Saturday night. It doesn't seem like we see Vancouver enough here in Toronto, so it's kind of nice to have them in. I wish them well as an organization. I always kind of liked them and thought that they deserved a bit better fate over the years. But I think Toronto will be a little bit more rested, and yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think you'll probably go back with Joseph Woll, but you never know. We'll see. Maybe he needs a bit of a break too.
Yeah. And for your friend that always watches, he always says Joe picks the right score. Give me a score, Joe.
Oh, I'm going to say the Leafs. I'm going to probably say the Leafs are going to put up 4 or 5 and maybe 2 or 3 for the other team. So let's
And
say
shout out your
5-3 Toronto
friend.
empty net.
5-3 Toronto. Shout out your friend for me.
Andy Kemp.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for watching, Andy. You're a loyal watcher. Much appreciate your viewership and comments.
And Lion from St. Catharines as well. He would like to join us here one day and talk Leafs. George, we're going to let you give your thoughts on the game moving forward tomorrow night.
Joe stole my score. I was saying 5-3 Toronto wins. And I wouldn't mind seeing Hildeby come in there and help out a little bit. Give Woll a chance to get a break for a second. And Hildeby will come in and stop the shots.
Okay, Joe, we're going to talk to you 1 second and tell me what you think of this logo that was designed for the Indigenous Celebration Day. It has a light blue for Georgian Bay. It has a turtle in it for Turtle Island, and it has strawberries surrounding the outside. What's your feelings on the Indigenous Celebrations Day? We're going to ask everyone, and that would be our last question for today, guys.
A lot of effort goes into these things, and you and I were looking at the logo yesterday and remarking about what everything means. And what I like about it is everything has a meaning or a symbol. Even the colors represent something, and I think that's a very proud thing for us as Canadians to have. And I like the logo. I have no issue with it, and I think it's well thought out. And that's what I like. I like when things are done for a reason, not just the visual because it looks cool. And that's what I like about it, the depth and the meaning.
Yeah, and a shout out to Shawanega Nation for having Jennifer Tabak for doing that logo for us. Paul, would you like to have? Actually, you know what? I'm going to leave you for last because you're our star, George. Can you? I know you haven't really seen it, but what's your thoughts on Toronto having an Indigenous celebration game?
Well, I think it's really good, and they do it out here in Calgary because there's a big Indigenous thing out here of people and stuff like that. So they do it out here a lot, and I think it's good that they're doing that.
Thank you. And Paul, we're going to let you run us out of the show here.
Yeah, I grew up in Noranda, Quebec. I hung out with a lot of Indigenous kids who came in from Notre Dame du Nord to go to school because they didn't have that availability in their community, not far from Rouyn-Noranda. Daniel Chief, who's one of the elders now back up there. Shout out to him. And I used to hang out with my dad. He'd take me on mining trips to below James Bay and Hudson Bay, the East Main River, Waswanipi River as well. I hung out with a bunch of Cree kids who didn't speak a lick of English, and I couldn't speak the other side either. But as a 10-year-old, it didn't matter, right? We had Pop-Tarts in the cook tent, and Sun Up, that powdered crystal stuff, and we had feasts, and language wasn't a problem. We were just kids having a good time together. I'm looking forward to this tomorrow, and I salute the Leafs for honoring our Indigenous community. It goes deep within my roots as well, given where I grew up.
She made ways to that. I am actually Ojibwe on my father's side, so it means a lot to hear you guys say what you are. Joe, would you like to end us off here today? Take us out.
Again, guys, enjoy the ride. It's been a fun season. The injuries have set us back a little bit, but look where we're at. I mean, if you'd have said at the beginning of the season, we're 4th overall in the league. Losing Auston Matthews for a period of time and William Nylander going into a bit of a slump and losing our goaltending, I would have said you're crazy. So let's enjoy it. It's really good. I think the best is yet to come, I'll be honest with you. And I look forward to getting back with you guys and talking maybe towards trade deadline about some little tweaks we're going to be making.
Hey, Matthew Nyes is a Toronto Maple Leaf.
Oh,
let's be thankful for what
man, oh man.
Great pick.
When's the last time we can say we developed a player like that? That's amazing.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Coming off of a 6-3 loss, you three, man, are great people to be speaking to. You're very optimistic about our Maple Leaf team. I thank you so much for coming on Ken's Corner podcast, Sports Timeout. My name's Ken Judge. I'm here with Joe Moyer, as always. Thank you, George Garbutt, for joining us. We'll see you on the Leaf fan panel because I always love being there. Paul, you got to come back to the fan panel as well. I know you're a busy guy. Paul, Henny Hendrick, the voice of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Thank you, everyone. You have a great day.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.